Craig, we hear a lot about the U.S. perspective with regard to international trade tensions, and specifically the U.S.-China relationship. But what's China's perspective of this whole issue?
It's a good question, and I think when companies are trying to figure out what's going on in the news with the trade war and what's going to happen medium and longer term, understanding how the Chinese are approaching all this is valuable. Sure. So in terms of the trade war, I think the short answer is they've used the last couple of months to solidify their position at the leadership level. Mm-hmm. The 70th anniversary that they just went through in October has helped them gain confidence in nationalism. So I think they are going to continue to be able to weather economic damage and try and get a better long-term deal in the long term, possibly accepting the short-term one.
Do you mean by consolidating that President Xi and his top lieutenants are all on the same page?
I think they are all on the same page, okay. And I think that is part of a longer-term effort that we've seen. Mm-hmm. I think that part of what many Americans don't understand about the Chinese is that much of what we saw for years as a disadvantage, top-down decision-making, very large strategic processes, a very large bureaucracy, which were for many years a negative, in this era under this leadership team have become a positive because they are able to focus money and policies and resources to doing things like Belt and Road and Made in China. They are making it work. We are seeing this in how they are gaining ground on the U.S. in terms of their technology and their output. We are seeing this in how they are playing the game better at international organizations. And we're seeing the reaction in the U.S. as protectionism goes on the rise to keep U.S. critical technologies out of the investments of Chinese companies and government entities. But what I think this sets up is this longer-term competition. And I think that what U.S. companies in particular need to be aware of and do more research in is the cyber law, which will impact all of their data in China, even giving the Chinese government the ability to enter into any cloud service and to potentially audit any IP, no matter how secret. And the other is to get a real understanding of the corporate social credit system. I think most folks in this country that have heard about that think that it rates individuals in China. It does not. Only in small circles does it. What it's really there to do is to give companies a rating, including U.S. companies, as to how they are complying. So all of this complexity and all of this real advancement behind the scenes by the Chinese government has made them a more formidable adversary for the U.S. government to deal with in negotiations. It's made them a more complex environment in terms of where to do business. But you have to try and, I think, understand their mindset if you're going to be successful in doing business there in the long term.
So companies talk about possibly moving their supply chains. They might also want to think about moving their data centers, or to the extent they have any data housed in China, maybe also moving that out of China.
They need to consider how they're going to do that in terms of a data strategy. When they move supply chains, if they are thinking about other places in East and Southeast Asia, the other thing that they need to think about is that many of those countries are not going to want to upset the Chinese too much. Many of the ministers in those countries were educated in and by the Chinese. So there are very strong regional ties between those countries, even if they appear sometimes at odds, as much as there would be between any neighboring countries. And I think U.S. companies shouldn't assume that Company X is going to be automatically different from China in their opinions. So there needs to be some geopolitical diligence that's done before you start to move supply chains.
Amazing. Craig, thank you as always for your perspective. Very valuable.
Thank you.